going through the 7 best Planeswalkers and Commanders and telling you what their decks look like.
I'm Mia, and I like washing my hands with foaming soap.
I'm BZ. I only have a +1 and a -1. I have no ultimate. We're the Nitpicking Nerds, and we're sponsored by Cool Stuff Inc., which means you can go buy Magic cards like you were going to buy Magic cards anyway, but if you use Cool Stuff Inc. and use code
NERDS
at checkout, you save 5% of your dollars on that order.
We're also sponsored by Dragon Shield. If you use the code
NERDS.
At checkout, you can also save 5% of real money tax dollars on that entire order. You can also click the link below.
Good sleeves. Also, we're sponsored by Moxfield. There's going to be an ad. You're not going to be able to guess where it is. You will fail if you try, but if you got it right, you cheated. That's how this works. That's very known information. And happy birthday to whoever's birthday is today, because we do make a video every single day. Mia, what are we doing?
Today we're going to be talking about the best Planeswalkers in Commander and what their decks do. I just want to note that these aren't in a particular order, but these are some of our favorites. First off is Liliana Dreadhorde General, 4 black, and it comes in with 6 loyalty. Whenever a creature you control dies, you draw a card. Her +1 is create a 2/2 black zombie creature token. -4 is each player sacrifices 2 creatures, and -9 is each opponent chooses a permanent that they control of each permanent type and sacrifices the rest. This can be a really nasty board wipe if you can get to that -9, but just in general, it can really help get those death triggers that your deck is built around.
Yeah, the static ability means it's always doing something. The -4, it could be a board clear type effect in its own right, which is also going to draw you cards if you sacrifice creatures. This is one of the best ultimates we've ever seen on a Planeswalker. It basically guarantees a KO, and it just works with so many different things. One of the coolest ways to abuse this Planeswalker through and through has got to be Sir Conrad the Grim. Whenever another creature dies or a creature card is put into a graveyard from anywhere out of the battlefield, or a creature card leaves your graveyard, he deals 1 damage to each opponent. So you activate Lily's -4. Everybody sacrifices 2 creatures. Let's assume they all have 2. Sir Conrad deals 8 damage to each opponent just from that. Like, that is sweet. I mean, you can mill cards too with Sir Conrad to finish people off, but that is like, play Conrad on turn 5, play Lily on turn 6, sack your stupid dorks that you made earlier, just perfect.
Yeah, if you have a little bit of mana to sink into him, you can usually get extra triggers, but I really have a hard time getting him to stick on the board a whole turn cycle because he's so dangerous, and people find that out, like, immediately.
Yeah, Lily's one of the ways to take advantage of Sir Conrad, like, right away. There's also Woe Strider. I put this in as a nice little sack outlet. A stand-in for any sack outlet, really, but it makes a goat when it enters, and it's recastable, so if she sacrifices it, it's not the biggest deal. Gives you fodder to draw cards with, and it just totally works with, like, the red-black sack deck that you can imagine.
I really like the fact that you have a sacrifice outlet on the field immediately, and you don't have to pay into it like a lot of sacrifice outlets do.
Yeah, so even if somebody goes to kill Liliana, if you'd rather have all the cards than all the tokens and creatures you have in play, you can sack as many of them as you want to draw as many cards as you want, and that's just pretty bonkers.
But if we want to talk about another card that's absolutely nasty in this deck, it's Yawgmoth, Thran Physician. You can pay 1 life and sack a creature and put a -1/-1 counter up to 1 target creature and draw a card, or you can pay black and discard a card to proliferate. I mean, this is just so good. It gets the proliferate to get extra counters on Lily. It gives you a sack outlet, and then you can start whittling away at other people's creatures too, if that's something you really want to do.
Yeah, this is almost like a Splinter Twin-esque effect. They both have effects that work perfectly together. So almost any deck that plays Lily should or could play Yawgmoth. And what happens is you can just play Lily on like turn 6 or something, turn 7, +1. She goes to 7. Then you untap, play Yawgmoth from your hand. He doesn't even have to be in play. Pay an extra 4 mana, discard 2 cards. All of a sudden, Lily's at 9. Ultimate, game over.
Yeah, I like the fact that if you play Yawgmoth that late in the game, because he's only 4 mana, you can kind of like pretend you have a few instants up, and then if they're all just swamps or they can all tap for black, you're like, okay, just proliferate and get her to 9, so next turn they like won't expect it.
Yeah, Yawgmoth plus Lily is like completely off the chain. I mean, worst case scenario, let's say you had to minus Lily or she got hit for 6 or something. She's still alive. She's pumping out 2/2s, and now every creature you sack is drawing you 2 cards, and it's interacting with your opponent's board. Yawgmoth's already busted. It's already one of the best black creatures in the format, but when you pair him with Lily, it feels like you can't lose.
Another card that I see a lot in BZ's Pioneer deck, actually, and just sacrifice decks in general, is Mayhem Devil. It's a 3/3 that whenever someone sacrifices a permanent, deals 1 to any target. Obviously, you're going to be doing most of the sacrificing, but this is really good, especially if your opponents have like treasures or clues, or you're just making them sacrifice with Lily's ultimate.
Yeah, I mean, let's use the -4. That's the main mode on this. That's the mode that ties the whole Planeswalker together. Everybody sacks 2 creatures. That's 8 things being sacrificed. You now get to divide 8 damage, and you know what everybody sacrificed, so you can just ping off whatever's left and just go, hey, do you feel like playing this game? Because you can concede at any time.
Mayhem Devil's surprisingly nasty and only 3 mana too, so it's like pretty cheap to come down the field.
Yeah, there's also Mahadi, Emporium Master. Let's talk about the -4 again. -4, force everybody to sacrifice 2 creatures. That's 8 things. Mahadi makes 8 treasures on your end step. That is absolutely brutal. This card is kind of impressed me every time I've seen it, and I would love to play it alongside Lily, whether I'm -4ing or not.
Yeah, I definitely want to try it out a little bit more because 8 creatures bare minimum with that, like, -4. But if you have any other additional effects, like sacking to Woestrider or Yawgmoth, and you get additional ones, and you can just play something like a giant spell next turn.
Yeah, because you're not going to have any problem drawing cards with Yawgmoth and Lily. The bottleneck's going to be mana, and the Mahadi's like, nope, I got you. We're all good. Throw in a Mayhem Devil, and now your treasures deal damage when you sacrifice them.
But if you're saving that mana for something, how about Grave Pact or Dictate of Erebos? Whenever a creature you control dies, each opponent sacrifices a creature. So you get that those dying triggers, the sacrifice triggers if you have like Mayhem Devil out. And if you are saving the mana from Mahadi, Dictate of Erebos has Flash.
Yeah, these are also ways to protect Lily. You don't have to -4 Lily to get like a full board wipe, even though that is pretty sick, because it would say you sacrifice 2 creatures, each opponent sacrifices 4 with that -4 ability. But you can just start plussing her, generating dumb tokens, your Woestrider goat sitting around from turn 3 when you played it, and now you sacrifice all that stuff. The board's empty, except for Lily, and you're drawing cards. It's just not a beatable board state. They have to either remove Grave Pact or Lily, or they basically can't win.
I find that these enchantments really oppressive at most games, because the decks that are playing them are usually so tuned to like take advantage of them that there's nothing that can stick on the field.
Yeah, exactly. But if we're talking, we want to build around these Planeswalkers. We want to build cool decks. Let's up the jank factor. Let's go to Revel and Riches. When our opponent's creatures die, we get treasures. If we have 10 treasures, we win. So I'm thinking Mahadi definitely goes in whatever that thing's happening. Mayhem Devil, sure. Bring all these together for some kind of kill your opponent's stuff treasure deck.
It also might take the attention off of other permanents you have, like Lily. If someone has something that says like destroy target permanent, they're like, oh, you might be able to win next turn because you have 9 treasures. Let me destroy that real quick, and Lily lives to see another day.
And I will say it one last time. -4 Lily after Revel and Riches generates you 6 mana right away. It's like you could just play Lily, minus it, kill 6 things, and then you basically time walked. You have a whole nother turn now.
Either way, whether you can get to the win with 10 treasures or you're just making mana, it's such a good investment to put on the board.
We're going to jump down to one of my favorite Planeswalkers of all time. He's also completely brutal. It's Teferi, Master of Time. 2 blue for 3 loyalty Teferi. You can activate loyalty abilities of him on any player's turn. Anytime you can cast an instant. +1, draw a card, then discard a card. -3, target creature you don't control phases out. And -10, take 2 extra turns after this one. This card is backbreaking by itself. You don't have to do anything, really. You could kind of just play this in any blue deck that could protect it reasonably. But we're going to go over the really, really cool ways you can actually build around it and make it even more backbreaking.
One of the cards that Teferi is especially brutal with is Circular Logic. It's a counter spell that says you counter the spell unless they pay 1 for each card in your graveyard. Using Teferi's draw then discard, you can do this on their turn when they're casting something big, discard it into Madness, and then cast it immediately. And I just got... Like, the last game that I played against his Oscar deck, I had to pay, counter target spell unless you paid 28. I couldn't do it, obviously.
Yeah, it's really like a 1-mana hard counter because you're also, before you discard it, you're using Teferi on other people's turns and just filling up the graveyard so it's even more efficient. This is basically 1-mana counter spell, but I like to say, just for fun, I count my graveyard before, and if I know someone's going to do something, and I go, counter unless you pay 27, and it's just like... Man, why'd you have to say it like that? Just for the value.
I should just watch when you're countering your graveyard just to see. It's like, oh, he has Circular Logic. Of course. Why didn't I think of that?
Yeah, but 1-mana hard counter spell at instant speed with my Planeswalker? Yeah, that seems pretty good. Also, Teferi's Angel's Insight. These cards were literally made to work together. This draws you an extra card except for the first one on your draw step. So every time you plus Teferi, it's now draw 2, discard 1, and that by itself is enough to just dominate the game. I don't even care what you play it with. Win with a ham sandwich at that point.
Honestly, this card has been a house every single time I've seen it, and the fact that you can activate Teferi on every person's turn, and it comes down so early at 4 mana, it's just insane, especially beginning of the game when you have all that card advantage.
Yeah, it's too much card selection and card advantage to beat, especially when Teferi's racing towards time stretch. It's not like his ultimate is, as bad as some of the other Teferis. This is take 2 extra turns. It's probably good enough to win you the game, and if Teferi can plus to 11 before ultimating, you get to plus Teferi 2 more times during those 2 extra turns and make him on his way again and just go, hey guys, fret's not over with.
But he also protects himself with his -3 to phase out creatures that you don't control. So we thought maybe you put in Disciple of Callous Nin. Each player chooses 5 permanents, the rest phase out, and permanents can't phase back in, which is absolutely brutal.
Yeah, so we'll play Disciple, phase everything out. We keep Disciple, we keep Teferi because we need the static ability of Disciple, and we need Teferi so that we can phase out more of our opponent's things. And I think this is almost like a hard lock because if they choose a bunch of lands, great, you have a Teferi ticking towards ultimate, and they can obviously kill it, but we have protection too. So then, if they choose like a bunch of creatures and commit to the board, we can just slowly phase them out as we protect our Teferi. They can never phase back in, no one's developing their board, and then we ultimate Teferi.
I found that usually people aren't as worried about Teferi getting to ultimate for some reason because it's like, oh, it's just like rummaging and stuff, and no one sees it coming, which is absolutely insane to me because it's like, oh no, you have to do it right now. He's gonna take 2 extra turns.
It ultimates in like a turn and a half. This is priority 1 removal, and I have really never seen Callous Nin in play ever, so this might be a cool reason to try it out. Faith of the Devoted is also pretty sweet. We'll dip over into black a little bit. Every time we plus Teferi, which is 4 times per turn cycle, we can now drain people for 2, and now we just turn him into a win condition.
I mean, he's so good with Madness cards and just that theme in general, which is why he's great in your Oscar deck.
Oscar is my favorite Teferi card. Nobody respects this. Oscar says when you discard cards, you can cast them from your graveyard. So really, it gives everything Madness, which means it can break timing restrictions. So Teferi, on anybody's turn, can +1, discard any card, and then just you can put that card right on the stack and do something at instant speed. Kind of just absurd. You got to kill one of these things or you're not going to have a good time.
We've talked about this before, but he's tried to build it at different power levels, but it only really sits at that higher one because it's so brutal.
Yeah, Oscar is so brutal. I could not get it to work. I've tried it like 4 different versions, and it is now settling at just beat the crap out of your opponents. You know what? No holds barred. Just run them over. That's been the best. It fits the best in that like type of pod.
Yeah, it's rough. But if you're looking for something a little bit jankier, Mazzolani the Great Door is a great one. It taps to rummage, and you could pay 4 and tap it and transform it, but you can only do it if there are 4 or more permanent types among cards in your graveyard, which you're going to be able to do easily with Teferi and this card. It actually transforms into the Core, which is a land that says you tap it and add X mana of any one color, where X is the number of permanent cards in your graveyard. We're going to be filling it up left and right.
Yeah, how easy is it to fill your graveyard with permanents when you get a loot every single turn? It is a loot, not a rummage on Mazzolani. Still great. We would play it anyway. I like that it's like a little slower. You know, you got to untap the land either by waiting an entire turn or by some shenanigans. But once you do, Teferi's powering this thing up to like a 10 mana land. That's not even a thing that I've heard of. You know, that's like Gaia's Cradle level.
I mean, I wouldn't be too worried because it says only 4 or more permanent types among cards in your graveyard. That's just 1 turn cycle. If you keep up the mana, 4 mana, just tap it and then you have it on your next turn.
Oh, I'm only concerned about having to pay for, tap this, transform it, then just have it sit there. Yeah. It's not like it's super vulnerable, but my graveyard might be, and I just kind of want to use the mana right away.
That's fair. Yeah, and I was just thinking about just 1 full turn cycle. You could get it if you have enough mana to do all of that because of Teferi's just ability alone.
But Beezy, you say, Teferi can draw cards, Teferi can remove things, but there's no way Teferi could ramp. And to that I say, you're wrong. Because Drown Yard Temple exists, so when you draw it, you discard it to Teferi, and now you've got instant speed, rampant growth from your graveyard, and we're in blue, so that's probably not something you have like ready access to. So it's pretty sweet include.
How much mana does that cost?
3, only 3.
That's
basically rampant growth.
Basically cultivate.
Basically, I mean,
-1 land.
I would play 3 mana rampant growth in blue, maybe.
Would you?
I think.
Colorless land?
Maybe. Oh, PSA about Teferi. 1 card I would never include in Teferi decks is Moxfield.com, because Moxfield.com is the best way to build a deck online. It's a website, so it really doesn't synergize with a Magic card, but it is a great way to sort and organize your Magic cards in the decks that you play.
You can actually take a card and note that it's in your collection, and I think it'll deduct it from the price at the bottom of like how much if you buy it.
You can build packages and say, oh, I'm building a cube or I'm building a 5-color deck. Put the Shockland package in Moxfield, and Moxfield's like, you got it.
That's really smart. I have to start using that.
I haven't yet, but I'm wasting my own time by not doing it. So just get on Moxfield. We're shouting out features you didn't even know existed because you don't have them on redacted sites. So get over there.
The next one is absolutely brutal, and I'm pretty sure it's feared by a lot of tables. Narset, Partner of Veils. 1 blue for a 5 loyalty planeswalker. Each opponent can't draw more than 1 card each turn. -2, you look at the top 4 cards of your library. You can reveal a non-creature, non-land card from among them and put them into your hand. Put the rest on the bottom of your library in a random order. Now, we all know that this card pairs with Windfall very well.
Yeah, it's not fun. This is not a fun Planeswalker, but it is one of the best ones. And, there's got to be a dirty... For every bunch of apples, there's a bad one. So here's the Narset, and there actually is maybe another bad apple on this list. But Windfall makes everybody discard their hand and then draw equal to the greatest number discarded. So if everybody discards their hand and the greatest number was 7, we're all going to draw 7. Except Narset's like, not you, or you, or you. You can all have 1. I'll take 7. And then how is the game not over?
Any wheel effect is brutal with her.
Yeah, that's a stand-in for every single wheel effect you can get your grubby little Narset hands on.
Gaia Reach Sanitarium is also another one that you can use your opponents can't draw more than 1 to your advantage. And the closest thing BZ has to Group Hug.
Mia loves saying that. You know what? I like saying it too. You kind of have to pick somebody to bully with this card, but you wait till it's the person you don't like's turn. Then you force everybody to draw, then discard. The 2 other people, whatever, they just draw a discard like normal, but the other person already drew this turn, so they just discard, and you obviously draw a discard.
Yeah, just getting that 1 card out of their hand and you get the card, like, ooh, it's nasty.
If you're already bullying them with Narset, they might be down to one card or 0 cards. So when they draw their draw step, you can activate it and just force them to discard the card they drew, their entire hand, right away.
Yeah, I think when people think of Narset, people don't even recognize that she has a -2. They're just like, oh, I can't draw more than 1 card a turn.
Yeah, exactly. Grand Arbiter, Augustin the Fourth. We figured this is probably where you're going to see this type of stuff. Just the decks that want to make you miserable. My white spells are cheaper. My blue spells are cheaper. Your spells are 1 more. And I'm already taxing your draw. I'm taxing your spells. I'm taxing everything you could do. And you're just sad.
Yeah, that is one of the worst staxiest commanders there is out there. I feel like that's one of the first commanders people learn to be like, ooh, I think that's going to be ruled zeroed out most tables.
Yeah, exactly. But you don't have to punch everybody's hopes into the dirt every time with Narset. This has got to be the fairest Narset build around. It's really cute. It's Displacer Kid, and it's 4 mana 2/2. When you cast a non-creature spell, you flicker a non-land permanent you control. Well, Narset digs 5 cards deep for a non-creature spell, and then when you have it, then you can cast it and flicker Narset so she'll be ready to activate again. And it kind of just lets you chain her -2, which is really cool and does not involve any sort of salt.
Yeah, there's no salt here. Oh, by the way, this Planeswalker is going to stay eternally on the field, and you can't draw more than 1 card per turn.
Yeah, even, if we want to dip to the dark side, even if you go to attack it, I'll just play some instant, like a Brainstorm or something, flicker Narset, and then it's removed from combat.
Yeah, that definitely won't make me salty, right?
That is not great. Not great for your opponents.
Have you considered Arcane Denial for this deck, though? It's a counterspell that says you draw 1 on the next upkeep, and they draw 2. But wait, they can't.
Yeah, would you like to draw 2? Either way, it's the same. It's the same result. I'm going to draw 1 extra. My counterspell replaces itself, and yours, nothing happens. I'm sorry. But we can bring some other legendary creatures in the mix here. Lore into the Third Path. It naturalizes when it enters, and then you can team up with somebody to draw a card with them. Except you're going to wait till their turn, and they're not going to get a card. But on paper, this looks fun.
Usually we use this in more of a political sense, or it's like, oh, you don't attack me, and I'll give you a card. But with Narset out, I don't think there's any politicking. It's just brutal.
Yeah, and let's use, you know what? We'll balance out the hate. We'll play a Group Hug card. We'll play Howling Mind, because it says we draw a card, an additional card on our draw step.
Oh, wait, we don't.
Just we, not you, not thee.
Yeah. Narset is absolutely brutal when she hits the field, and you're going to have a hard time keeping it off the field, honestly.
Yeah, but we're going to jump to a much more fun Planeswalker next. 1 blue-red for a 3 loyalty DAC. +1, target player draws 2, then discards 2. -2, gain control of target artifact. -6, you get an emblem with whenever you cast a spell that targets 1 or more permanents, gain control of those permanents. So it's definitely more fun, but stealing people's artifacts might make them a little salty. And, while we're stealing them, let's just, increase the range of permanents we can steal with Liquid Metal Torque. It can turn any permanent into an artifact for the turn. So we go, that's a really cool bomb you just played. You played a Grave Pact. You played a Lily Dreadhorde General. Make it an artifact, -2, steal it forever. It's not tied to DAC, it's just stolen.
I mean, the worst part is, or best part for you, worst part for them, is that you can just keep their commander on the board and just lock it down, go, oh, your commander's an artifact, I'll be taking that now, and then they have to use a kill spell on their own commander to bring it out again.
Yeah, that's the thing about DAC, is he basically is just a 3 mana steal an artifact like sorcery. It sticks around and just a planeswalker, so if he happens to survive, people forget, board gets wiped, whatever, now you can just start looting, and that's super powerful. Or you can go for the ult, which I would think works perfectly in like a Hanada Dawn Crown deck. Hanada's like your spells cost less for each target, and you're playing a lot of those like Aurelia's Furies, which can target every creature but do something really small to them, and that's exactly what Dax Ultimate wants to do, because then it says steal all creatures.
Honestly, I want to see if I can put this in my $20 Hanada deck. It's a really cheap deck, but it works so well because this commander's so powerful.
Unfortunately, I think Dak is like 10, 15, maybe $20.
No.
He's not, maybe he's at least 7. So
No.
I think that's probably healthily out of range.
That's rough, but Hinata does let you target so many things. I've locked down an entire board for 1 blue mana, just tap down the entire board. It's like if I had the emblem, I'd be like, oh, I'll just take all of that too. That's awesome.
It's so nasty. You just got to make sure that you're like paying attention to what your spells do, because if you resculpt a creature, Dax Emblem says you gain control of it. Then it gets resculpted, so that doesn't really do you any good. So make sure you have like low impact spells that maybe have alternate uses or something. Notion Thief. What a fun Magic card. The mono blue version of this card is banned, but you can use Dack Fate into plus on somebody else, which will, instead of just drawing you 2, discarding 2, it will straight up draw you 2, and then they discard 2. Is that fun? Jury's still out.
Yeah, I thought we were done with Salty since Narset's gone. However,
Oh yeah, what's our next one?
Consecrated Sphinx. When opponent draws, you can draw 2. You're going to be drawing so many cards, and from what I've been told, that's not a particularly non-salty Magic card.
It is not. Maybe we were slightly misleading when we said this was much more fun, but you can plus targeting your opponent to make them loot, and they're not going to have to, it's even for them, but you're going to draw 4.
But if you're playing a Wooburg deck, which could be really fun as someone who really likes playing multiple colors, how about Eerie Ultimatum? Return a number of differently named permanents from graveyard to play. You're going to be discarding a bunch, so just bring them all back.
Yeah, me is thinking, you plus Dack 2 or 3 times, you put all your best permanents in there, and then in this Wooburg deck that wants Dack Fade and Eerie Ultimatum, you're in business.
I think it could work.
I kind of want to see it. Use the Is It cards to loot and the Abzan cards to bring them all back.
Yeah, I mean, you love your graveyard. Just smash that together with some looting cards. You love drawing cards, too.
I really do.
That sounds like your perfect 5-color deck.
If I was going to make another 5-color deck, it'd be that.
But since we're going to be getting a lot of draw triggers, how about the Locust God? Whenever you draw, you create a 1/1 bug with flying and haste. You're going to be creating so many bugs because you're going to be getting that trigger.
It's a good way to tap out for Locust God and then get something right away before it dies or gets bounced or something weird happens to it. Like, obviously it comes back, but that's not a dream scenario for you. Tapping 12 mana for this thing before and still not getting a bug. So you can play it on turn 6 plus Dack, which you already played, and then get 2 bugs right away. So now you can defend Dack, and it's just like the perfect little synergy.
Another card that really hurts your opponents when you draw is Psychosis Crawler. I love this in my Wheels Matter type deck, and whenever you draw, each opponent loses 1. Well, you're getting bare minimum 3 draws a turn.
Yeah, so with Dack Fate, you can at least start draining them out and make it so that the card does a little bit when it enters the first turn before it's vulnerable to some nasty effects that they might play. So I like all these cards in the same deck. If they were all in the same deck, not the most fun deck. So maybe split them in half between the Consecrated Sphinx and Notion Thief side and the Psychosis Crawler, Liquimetal Torque side.
I feel like it would be a really nasty. It's like, oh, the Narset deck with the half side of Dack Fade, and it's like, ooh, that's a deck no one wants to play against.
Yeah, Dack Fade and Narset are also best friends. they work well together. Okay, for real though, we're gonna move to a way cooler Planeswalker. This is the Eternal Wanderer, and she's really, really good. 4 white for a 5 loyalty Planeswalker. No more than 1 creature can attack her each combat. +1, you flicker an artifact or creature until the controller's end step, the next end step. Pay 0, make a 2/2 with double strike, and -4, the real whammy. For each player, choose a creature that player controls. Each player sacrifices all creatures they control, not chosen this way. So you pick their worst creatures and your best creature, and that's what survives.
I mean, the fact that you can do this immediately is absolutely insane. 6 mana, that's for a board wipe.
That's what you gotta think
a pretty normal. That's a pretty normal rate to begin with, especially if you can choose what stays and what goes.
Yeah, usually we said Dack Faden is like a stealing an artifact with a Planeswalker left over. This is a board wipe with a Planeswalker left over. And there's a ton of ways to take advantage of it, like our boy Mayhem Devil, who this time is going to see all of this creatures being sacrificed, and then when your opponents have 1 creature left, you snipe it down because you have control over it. So you say, keep your 1/1, keep your 2/2, keep your 3/3, those are your worst creatures. Now that I have 12 triggers, I'll snipe them all down and then ping the rest in your face.
You don't even have to actually snipe creatures down too much because more than 1 creature can't attack her to begin with.
That's
So
true.
if they have targets somewhere else, they might go, oh, she gets hit with a 1/1 or something. But the other 2 might go somewhere else, especially if you politic.
Yeah, and just the Eternal Wanderer hits like a truck in so many ways. Let's just throw Grey Merchant and Asphodel down. You drain them for 5, whatever, cool. Plus flicker it. Then you drain them again on your end step, and it's just like, do I go after Gary? Do I go after Eternal Wanderer? Should I just quit?
But I know you're wondering, we can only keep one creature ourselves. That's pretty rough. If we play Eerie Interlude also in our deck, we can exile all of our creatures and just bring them right back after her ability resolves.
Yeah, and she already wants you to like play a few ETBs here and there because of her +1, so that synergizes with Eerie Interlude, and so now you get retrigger all the ETBs and save your creatures from her board wipe, and then they have one creature each, maybe, assuming you didn't kill them, and now your entire board is still here to protect the Wanderer, and they can only attack her with one creature.
I'm actually surprised I don't see the Wanderer played more, especially in Blink decks.
I've been liking it. I think it's a sweet budget card. It's just sick value. You getting to keep your best thing and them getting to keep their worst thing just means that there's not too many ways it can go bad for you. Even if Wanderer dies immediately, that's a good... I'd play that sorcery.
Yeah, I would too. But if we want to actually talk about things with ETB triggers, why don't we include Preston the Vanisher? Whenever another non-token creature ETBs under your control, if it wasn't cast, which will be blinking so it won't be, you create a token that's a copy of it, except for it has lower stats. But that doesn't matter because we're going to be getting those triggers left and right.
Yeah, so we can use the Wanderer to flicker something, get a 0/1 copy of it, and then eventually maybe we sack 5 illusions and exile something. It's just like all these cards work a little bit too well together, and your opponent just kind of goes, oh crap, I don't want to do any of this. Maybe a commander this Wanderer goes well in is Malik, Grid Manipulator, or you may know him as Negan. Basically says a bunch of fluff, and then whenever an opponent sacrifices a creature, you get a treasure token. And they might not be thinking that our white cards are going to make them sacrifice all their creatures, but they are.
Yeah, you're going to be getting so many treasure tokens with Mahadi, Negan. Like, you're just going to be set for mana.
This is like a weird like Lily impression. We're playing all the same cards. We're like, yeah, give me all the treasures. I'm going to basically make 6 treasures, take an extra turn, like I just said with Lily, and do some more weird stuff. Another card I like with Eternal Wanderer is Mondrak Glory Dominus, actually for a bunch of different reasons. So it doubles your token count. So if you want to 0, which is the worst ability on the Wanderer, but you can 0 to make 2/2/2 double strikes. That's cool if the board is empty. But what else I like is you can sack your other creatures, make this thing indestructible, minus the Wanderer, which you were about to do anyway, so who cares that you sacrifice creatures? Leave yourself with just Mondrak, and now it's really hard to attack through your indestructible 4/4 to get any damage in on the Wanderer, especially when you controlled what creatures survived.
I really love the fact that the Wanderer basically does protect herself. It's a really cool ability to keep in on a Planeswalker.
Okay, all right. Time for the jank. I don't think this card is good at all, but you know what? With the Eternal Wanderer, I maybe would try it out. It's Entrapment Maneuver. It's 3 white for an instant. Target player sacrifices an attacking creature. Then you make X/1/1s, where X was the creature's toughness. Okay, hear me out. So the Eternal Wanderer says only one creature can attack it. So you want to attack it with your most evasive, biggest flampling, something that's going to guarantee to get the damage through. And since we can only attack it with one thing, that's when we play Entrapment Maneuver. Holy crap, this card still sucks. But, if that sparked anything in you, I've done my job.
I guess. I mean, if you had 4 mana up and you had the Wanderer out, I would not expect you to have Entrapment Maneuver. But also, say everyone just keeps one creature because you're making them sack everything but the worst creature is like, okay, swing at her with the 1/1. You're like, Entrapment Maneuver for 1?
Well, or you finagle it so that you're like, all right, keep your 6/6 Flampler, so that because they're going to attack her. Then you pay 4 mana to get 6/1/1s. That's not even that. That's not even that good.
It's not that good, and I feel like if you let me keep my 6/6 and like you were just like, no, you can have it, I'd be like, oh, I have to point that elsewhere. There's no bargain. There's no way that this ends cleanly for me.
I just think the mind game, the intellectual superiority that you exert over someone with this play, has got to be worth it. But we will move on to a different Planeswalker. What do we got next?
We have Tezzeret the Seeker. 3 blue for a 4 loyalty Planeswalker. You can +1 to untap up to 2 target artifacts. -X, you search your library for an artifact with X or less mana value. Put it on the battlefield, then shuffle. -5 artifacts become base power 5/5 till end of turn. So you could just get this like overrun of artifacts, which is kind of crazy.
But we do have to get out the elephant in the room. Get this out of the way right now.
If you don't have it on the field already, you're going to be using that -X to get Soul Ring. I mean, you're not like ticking down his loyalty much at all, and it's the best card in Magic, or one of them at least.
Yeah, and it makes Tezzeret effectively only cost 3 mana the turn you play him, and then you can maybe develop your board and protect him a little bit. But we just have to get that out of the way, because that's what everybody does with this thing first. But now we get to the cool stuff. Now that you have your Soul Ring out, you can tutor next turn for Phyrexian Metamorph, which is really sweet. Actually, you can't, but Tezzeret starts at 4, so you can search for a clone, and now you're not even getting a card that you have. You're getting a card that whatever is in play that is the best. I think that's some pretty cool toolbox power. A Tezzeret definitely gives you the ability to toolbox.
I really love Phyrexian Metamorph because it does come in really cheaply, and the fact is that you can choose an artifact too. I've definitely chosen someone's Soul Ring and had multiple Soul Rings on the field with it.
So you get -1, get a Soul Ring, then you +1 to untap Soul Ring, then you untap bin Tezzeret to go get Phyrexian Metamorph on Soul Ring.
Yeah.
That's the move.
I've done it before. I mean, I don't bin him usually, but
Well, he would just die because he has the -4. But you know what? That's the cost of greatness.
multiple Soul Rings, yeah.
You just win. We also have Academy Manufacturer. Hear me out, because we're trying to make clues, foods, and treasure with this thing so that we can make just a trillion of them. So once we stack up tokens, this is kind of a filler for anything that makes a bunch of tokens. You can actually ultimate Tezzeret pretty quickly. You can +1 when you play them, then untap and ult, turn all of your janky tokens into 5/5s. Kind of a real way to end the game.
I mean, Academy Manufacturer just shines in so many decks that, especially ones lately that have been making a lot of food, and you're just getting so much mana and just extra triggers, then I think that, he'd be good in any artifact deck.
Yeah, and if you don't think Tezzeret synergizes with Academy Manufacturer, picture any deck that makes food, clues, or treasures and is blue. Tezzeret's just a 5-mana Academy Manufacturer. He can go tutor it. It has to be good in the same decks.
Absolutely. But if we want to talk about mana ramp, how about Basalt Monolith? It's kind of expensive to untap, but if you can untap it for free with his ability, suddenly it gets a lot better.
Yeah, and, we'll throw in a little bit of lame salt in here, too. Tezzeret can find Basalt Monolith and Rings of Brighthearth if you give him enough time. So make sure you kill Tezzeret, but for now, Basalt Monolith seems fair. It's like, oh, I'm cheating 3 mana by untapping. You're like, okay, cool. Tezzeret might only say that he has 3 abilities, but he actually has a hidden 4th ability, which is 0: search your library for an artifact land, put it onto the battlefield. We can do that with Treasure Vault. That's the one I picked. It can make some treasures, and it's kind of got utility. But I just like that Tezzeret has that extra mode on him where, I can just ramp, with a land if I want to.
This is the equivalent of, did you know Teferi also ramps if you have 3 mana out?
Tezzeret ramps. He puts a land into play. It's 5 mana Cultivate.
Absolutely. I mean, that's the best ramp in the game. I don't know how it could get any better.
We're giving you all the blue ramp options, and you know what? I'm sure you're very grateful for it.
That's what I was looking for.
All right. This next one's pretty sick, though. This is actually, really good. What is it?
The One Ring. You know it. When it ETBs, if you cast it, you get protection from everything, and if you tap it, you add burden counters, you draw cards equal to the burden counter, and you lose life on your upkeep equal to the number of burden counters. It's such a good card draw engine. I've been happy to take 15 life over the course of 5 turns because it's so good.
Yeah, you don't always need that, if you cast it, gain protection. You don't always need that. So I can pretty happily just sacrifice my Tezzeret, go find the One Ring, and just start upping it and drawing way too many cards for 4 mana. But if Tezzeret's at enough loyalty, or you draw this and you don't have to tutor for it, you can start untapping the One Ring and drawing extra cards and just cheating time and just saving, just generating so much resource. It's really brutal. I hadn't thought about this synergy until we made this video, and I'm like, brutal.
Yeah, if it's out on the field already, you get 3 cards immediately.
Yeah, that's pretty good. But we did save the best for last, because this card, I've almost never seen anything synergize with Tezzeret more perfectly and with all 3 modes than Shorikai Genesis Engine. It's an 8/8 vehicle with crew 8, which is impossible. And you can tap it and pay 1 to draw 2, discard 1, make a 1/1 pilot that can crew it a little bit. But we've got 4 mana artifacts, so Tezzeret can tutor for it right away if you need to and just put it on the battlefield. It's really efficient card draw, but if it's already out, Tezzeret can untap it so that you draw more cards, and you're never going to crew this stupid thing. But if you ultimate Tezzeret, this thing becomes a 5/5 creature.
Shurikai is really, really good. It very rarely makes it around the table when I play it because he knows how dangerous it is.
It's too many cards. Too many card advantages.
So if you have Tezzeret out and you're just finding it immediately and you can untap it, that's so many cards, you're getting so many blockers. It doesn't even matter if you can't actually make it a creature because you're going to have a field of blockers and a handful of cards.
Yeah, the game's going to be over, essentially. Okay, so we did mention there's one more bad apple in our bunch. It's Karn the Great Creator. You know him, you hate him. 4 mana, 4 loyalty, activated abilities of artifacts your opponent's control can't be activated. +1 until your next turn, up to 1 target non-creature artifact becomes an artifact creature with power and toughness equal to its mana value. And -2, you may reveal an artifact card you own from outside the game, or choose a face-up artifact you own in exile and put the card into your hand. People might think the -2 is useless, but if you have a card that's exiled, we'll get to that, you can actually just get it back. So the -2, not irrelevant.
Surprisingly nasty. And the first card, we actually have Microsynth Lattice, or Microsoft Lettuce,
that's what I call
like
it.
To say. All permanents are artifacts in addition to their other types, which just completely shuts down your opponent's boards.
Yeah, artifact lands won't have activated abilities, like producing mana, so your opponents are stuck with whatever they have on board. They can't add anything else to the board. how are they supposed to beat this if they can't cast spells?
Yeah, just oof. I mean, that's just a hard lock, right?
It is a hard lock. It's game over. I really can't think of too many situations where this is not game over. Force of Vigor, maybe, that might get you out of it, but that's an instant. So, outside of those instants and the counter spells and stuff, you're basically dead in the water to this. But to touch on that second ability mattering, let's use Relic of Progenitus. We can exile all graveyards, get some graveyard hate. It cantrips, so it's pretty low opportunity cost to play in your deck. And now anything you exiled, Karn can just get it back to your hand, including the Relic if you really wanted to.
Yeah, if that's that important to you. But the fact that you can tap it and just exile a card is like, oh, someone destroyed your Soul Ring? I'll be taking that. But if we want to talk about really mean ways to use this card, Liquid Metal Torque. If you thought stealing artifacts was bad, how about turning your opponent's lands into artifacts and then destroying them?
Yeah, you +1, you make it an artifact creature equal to its mana value, power toughness wise, which is 0, so it becomes a 0/0 and just dies. So, if you don't feel like, going through all the trouble to play Microsoft Lettuce, you could just slowly but surely strip mine your opponents, and they will probably love you after that. They'll be like, oh, cool play, bro. And then I'll fist bump you.
Yeah, I'm having a great time.
I'm really enjoying this. What's the next one you wrote down?
Darksteel Monolith. It's 8 mana, indestructible, and you can pay 0 once per turn rather than the mana cost for a colorless spell that you cast from your hand. So this is great in a couple ways because you get that cost reduction of some, really big spell, but also if you use his ability to make it a creature, it becomes an 8/8 that's indestructible.
That's pretty chunky. Now Karn is like throwing out damage. And that's the other thing about Karn is once you hard lock the game, if the opponents can't pressure Karn enough, he can do things like this where it's like, oh, I have this 8/8 plus indestructible attack over and over and over and over, and then they can't beat that. Plus, your lands still work, so you're still playing spells.
Yeah, this is not a fun planeswalker.
No, he's not. Let's throw in some additional wilds of Eldraine Spice. Agatha's Soul Cauldron can exile cards from your graveyard. If you're playing a lot of colorless creatures with counters and stuff, then they're all going to take deactivated abilities, and that's cool. But if you really just need the card itself back to your hand, now that it's exiled with the Soul Cauldron, Karn can grab it back. So this seems perfect.
I like the fact that this is a little bit of graveyard hate too, along with combo potential. Because yeah, you can combo with it with I think like Grist and stuff.
I think like a ham sandwich.
Yeah, but if someone has something really bad in the graveyard that they want to reanimate, you can also go, nah, actually put that in exile.
Get that out of there. Yeah, this does a lot. I like it with Karn a lot. The next two, now we're clowning around. This is clown shoes behavior. Wishclaw Talisman. We can tutor with it, but we have to give it away to an opponent. But it's an artifact, so we can just tutor for Karn, actually, now that I'm thinking about it. Play Karn, and now that our opponent has Wishclaw, they can't even use it.
Yeah, if they destroy it, maybe go try and keep Op Agent in your hand or something, but this is like the real tech here.
Yeah, that's so sad. You watch the hope fade from their eyes as they're like, oh, Karn, well, that sucks. I'll just go find an answer. And they go, eh. And then the artifact won't tap, and the magic won't let you do it. And you just look at them like, you know what's happening.
Activated abilities are not welcome here, especially with Crown of Doom. You can, whenever a creature attacks you or a planeswalker you control, it gets +2/+0 till end of turn, but you can give it to a target player, but you can. The you part is important because they can't.
It's an activated ability of an artifact, so you just stick somebody with this crown. I mean, you can't get it back anyway, but now they can't give it away, and everybody knows that it's just open season. You just dominate that player, and then they die.
That is an absolute death note on a stick.
Yeah, some of these cards a lot less fun than others. Some of them more fun than others, though. I think if you're looking for 7 more of something, I would highly recommend you go watch our 7 most unstoppable commanders. There's a bit of this brutality from this video in there, mixed with commanders you can build your entire deck around. What's our tip of the day?
Get your flu shot.